All right, everyone. Well, we've made it to the end of the week. I hope you guys had a great week. For me, this week was night and day compared to last week. And why was that? Well, if you recall, last Thursday, a week ago yesterday, I had a max loss red day. Then I had another day on Friday that was just garbage. And in fact, pretty much every day last week, I was over trading. I had several days where I started to spiral. I then recovered and finished back in the green, but it was just not good trading. And so I made the decision on Friday that I was going to set some guardrails for myself coming into the new week to help rein myself back in. Because what I know is that when I start to get that emotional spiraling, I start to take unnecessary risk. I get reckless. I get way too aggressive. And usually it'll culminate in really big losses, which I guess is kind of what happened on Thursday and Friday, although the losses in the grand scheme of things really weren't that big. So nonetheless, I put these guardrails in place for Monday morning. The first guardrail was that max share size 5,000 shares until I could just close the day green, because I'd been red on Thursday and Friday. So I said, I just need to close one day green just to break the red streak. It's one thing to have one red day, having 2 red days, 3 red days, 4, 5, 6 in a row. That starts to get to be problematic. So I was like, I just don't want to go on, multi-day red streak, because then again, I'm just going to get more activated, more frustrated, more stubborn, and it's going to negatively influence my trading. So that guardrail was set for Monday morning. And I also said that I was going to be done pretty much at the open. And that was because last week I had a number of days where I had a great pre-market. And then at the open, I would give back profit in like the first 30 minutes and then sort of overtrade, revenge trade, and rally back late morning. But I was like, I just would have been better off if I hadn't traded at all, if I just sort of stopped at the open. So I did that 4 out of the 5 days this week. So I only had one day this week where I traded past the opening bell. And, the fact is, last week there were opportunities past the open, but I just screwed it up because I would catch a false breakout, dig myself a hole, and then when we finally got good opportunities, I was just digging myself out. So it just didn't really work that well. If I could have been more disciplined and more patient, then maybe I could have just capitalized on those moves without getting caught in the chop, but that's not the way it worked. Now, if we look at the charts for today, we'll see a number of stocks that popped up and sold off. This is one right here, TCJH, popping up, pulling back, just not able to really hold up, as you can see. Earlier today, yesterday we had Duo. So Duo, Chinese stock, I didn't trade it yesterday, and some people asked about that in my recap. They said, well, this was a nice 100% move. I'm surprised you didn't trade it. And the main issue for me was that it was basically not tradable pre-market until right into the open. But even at that spot, I had already taken my one trade in the Thinkorswim account. So I was like, for the small account, even though it's a nice price, I'm out of trades. And for my main account, I just felt like it wasn't worth it. And I'd already had a pretty good day. And I was focused on another stock, which I thought at the time was stronger. Now, this didn't end up pulling back and then squeezing up nicely, which was good, but I didn't end up catching any trades on it. All right, so then after hours, it moves a little higher. Pre-market, it moves a little higher. And then look at this, right at 7 a.m., jackknife. So I was like, man, this is how we're going to start this day right now? A jackknife at 7 a.m.? What basically happened was it starts to pop up and then profit taking and it dumps. So that was the end of Duo. So that was kind of, just to sort of set the stage a little bit. So when I first looked at the scans this morning at about 6:45, I saw ONCO was on the scans. Let's see, Duo was on the scans as well. ONCO had this nice pop after hours, pulled back, popped a little higher, dipped down, and then curled. Now, this was sort of that curl right at about 7 a.m., which ended up working really well. Now, if at first I was like, I don't know, the float's a little high. And then I realized that this is a stock that just did a reverse split. And so the float hasn't been updated to reflect that the reverse split. So once I factored that in, I realized, okay, well, the float is actually 1/40th of 23 million shares. So it's actually more like 500,000 shares. So it's actually a pretty low float stock. So then I was like, okay, I pull up the level 2. It's not easy to borrow. It is on short sale restriction, which is what CB stands for. 100% means it's not marginable, so you can't use leverage on it, cash only. Well, you can use settlement leverage, but you can't use you don't get leverage like 3 or 4 times or whatever it would be. It's depending on the broker you're with. So, but that was fine. I trade in a retirement account, so I don't get leverage anyways. So I pull it up and I took my first trade on it at 7:03 a.m. So 7:03, I break the ice, first trade. It's popping up right here. It dips down and I buy kind of on this micro pullback right around here at $5.35. I bought 5,000 shares, which is my max position until I'm up over 1,000 on the day. And it goes up to a high of like 542 right here, 544. So I'm up 9 cents a share, 8 cents a share. And then it drops back down and I sold it. I was like, I better get out. Made 4 cents a share on the first trade, $200. So immediately I'm like, oh boy. All right, well, I mean, it's a green trade, but I don't get in with the intention of only making 4 cents a share because realistically, I'm risking 10 cents a share at a minimum, sometimes 20 cents. So at first I'm kind of like, this is, okay, it's a little choppy. But it dips down and I end up buying the dip down here at 527. I see a bidder at, it must have been somewhere around 520, 522 on the bid, big order. So I said, all right, I'll jump in here. So I got back in 5,000 shares at 27. Pops back up and it goes up to 50. And so I get out. So that trade a little bit better. So now I'm up like $900 on the day. So I'm like, okay, we're making some progress. Then another trade right through here. Boom. Next thing you know, I'm up 1,500, 1,800, 2,000, 2,500, 2,800. And as it squeezes up, we peak at about 640 right here. Then we go into this period of consolidation and we end up having a bit of resistance up here around this sort of 635 area. So at this point, we popped up to 647, we rejected, we dropped back down, and I did take that trade right there. I was looking for the breakthrough 650. It didn't break 650, it drops back down, but it was a small winner. Then it comes back up again, and I take another stab at it right here, and that trade was a nice one. And on that one, at that point, I was already up over $1,000, so I increased my max share size. I said, well, I'm taking my cap of 5,000 shares off. And on that trade, I took 10,000 shares and I made about $1,000. It wasn't a huge winner, but that brought me from about 2,800 to 3,700 on the day. And then that was it. You know, it pulled back a little bit and then it was just choppy at the open. And you know, I think I pretty much made about as much in this as I could have. I could have made more money if I traded with larger share size, but remember, trading with larger share size, I'd have to be comfortable with taking a bit more risk, having bigger losses. And also, you can get a little bit of liquidity issues. You know, you start trying to jump in and out with 10,000 shares when it's lighter volume earlier in the move, and you might get some slippage. And if it's a loser, your loser will be bigger. If you're a winner, your winner will be a little smaller. But that's not ideal. So that was ONCO and ended up selling off at the open. It kind of tried to do almost for a second a red to green move, and I was watching it, but right in here there were so many sellers. There was just a wall of sellers right here, and they're like, nope, we are not letting it through. So that big stack of sellers couldn't break through. Now, I wouldn't have known about that if I hadn't been able to read the level 2. But of course, being able to read the level 2, I could see, all right, we've got a big seller here. This is a problem. I have to, you know, I just have to leave this one alone. So, so by the way, if you haven't checked out any episodes from, let's see, this is my small account challenge that I'm doing right now. You guys should check this out. So this is the Thinkorswim Small Account Challenge, and episode, let's see, this is episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. On episode 4, I taught an hour-long class on what beginners get wrong about level 2. So I would encourage you to check that out because level 2 for me today definitely added to the profit and helped me prevent unnecessary losses. It helped me see where to buy dips, and it helped me recognize where I should not jump in for breakout or continuation because of big sellers blocking the way. So ONCO, that was the one I traded. Now, but there were a couple others that popped up on the scan, but I said, no, I'm not going to touch it. I want to walk you through the decision making on that. So one of them was CNEY, which actually right now is the leading percentage gainer, but ONCO was the leading percentage gainer earlier. My problem with CNEY is that I traded it a couple times previously already. I didn't trade it just yesterday. It squeezed up yesterday, but it's popped up a couple of days here in a row. And if you remember, just like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, it had this big move here, but it really wasn't super easy to trade. This is kind of that similar price range as Duo. You know, it pops up, it drops down. It's just not easy to trade. And the only way to make money is to take big share size, and I just feel like it's not worth it. So as soon as I saw it on the scanner today, I was like, oh yeah, CNEY. I remember it from last week or whatever. It's choppy, I'm not interested. There were a couple of higher float stocks that people called out, and I was like, nope, float's too high. IONQ was one of them. Did it move? It did, but typically these higher float stocks are easy to borrow. We're going to be a lot choppier. They're not going to be easy to trade. There was another one earlier. Let's see. Oh, ATGL. ATGL, this one I said no on. So here was kind of my issue. I looked at the chart and I'm like, all right, well, the problem with this is it's somewhat close to the 200 moving average up here, 572-ish. It's got a little resistance at 483 here and maybe a little here, just a little higher. And I said, is it a recent reverse split? No, it's not a recent reverse split. So I'm like, okay, it's not a recent reverse split. You know, it's sort of not the right theme. I think it's a Chinese company, and Chinese stocks have been volatile recently. So there was, you know, some potential, but I just didn't think it was going to work. And so I said, nope, I'm not going to take that trade. So pre-market, it did end up moving up a little bit. And I kind of had to make that decision that, nope, I'm going to let this go without me. First, it pops up. I didn't see that. That was earlier. But then it came back up here, and so people were like, oh, look at this. And I was like, no, I don't trust it. Pulled back, tries to go again, and I was like, no, I don't trust it. And that was the right move. So I'm glad I left that one alone. That would have definitely saved me some unnecessary losses. So that was ATGL. And then CNET, this one popped up. It was a little bit cheaper. MEGL, this one popped up a little bit cheaper as well. No trades in the small account today. Thursdays and Fridays are a little hit or miss, Fridays especially, because we're not as likely to see good headlines. There were a couple opportunities on ONCO that I considered, but the first trades on ONCO, I was trading in my big account. Just first goal, you know, building my cushion in the big account. And then usually once I build the cushion in the big account, I switch to the small account. But in this case, you know, by the time I got my trades on ONCO, we had this MACD crossover. And then I was like, well, at this point, I'm trading the backside of this crossover. I don't really think I should. And as it came back up, let's see, it was right around 55 here. I almost took this trade in the small account right there. And I would have been able to buy about 3,000 shares. And it would have worked, but I was like looking at it and I was like, you know, you said your number one setup, trade the front side of the move when the MACD's on its first sort of open crossover. Once it crosses back, leave it alone. And I was like, you know, I just don't think it's worth it. Now, in that small account challenge right now, I have currently taken, and I'm going to do a recap. I'm going to group a couple of days together for the next recap. So it'll be day 8, 9, and 10 probably. But right now in the Thinkorswim challenge, let's see, I've got, it's like 10 trades. No, it's 9 trades. I have 9 trades that I've taken so far, and my accuracy is 90%. I have 9 winners and 1 loser. My average loser is $154. It's the only loss I've had. And my average winners are $600. So the account is growing nicely. 90% accuracy is great, but I can really only keep up that high level of accuracy if I continue to be really picky. But I do feel like that's important because I still have this goal of growing the account to 25,000, and I don't want to jump into something and catch a, you know, 30, 40 cent jackknife and then, you know, give back. It's just, you know, mentally it's hard when you take big losses like that. So I want to try to avoid it. And that means I've got to trade high quality setups. And that means I got to be okay with not necessarily trading every single day. So that's fine. So anyways, no trades there in the small account today. The next recap will be coming soon. Okay. So now overall market, S&P 500, You know, the S&P 500 is pretty much at all-time highs right here. It does feel like we're teetering up here a little bit, like we're kind of extended. We're like way up here. We're due for a little bit of a pullback, which would be fine. There'd be nothing wrong with that. But overall, no issues with the overall market. And of course, we've got, you know, the fall coming up really quickly here. Last day of September is on Monday. And then already it's October and the election is about a month away. So, you know, it's going to be really interesting, of course, to see what happens with this election and, you know, the reaction from the market and, you know, from, of course, just the reaction period. It's going to be a very interesting, you know, 6 to 8 weeks. So I'm going to try when the market is giving us good opportunities to be as aggressive as I can and capitalize on them. I expect, as is typically the case, the election will bring a lot of volatility, and that should mean a lot of opportunity for active traders like us. So looking forward to that. And, you know, as always, I'll be here showing up every single day. So if you want to join me for a 2-week trial, there will be a link pinned at the top of the comments. If you joined today or tomorrow, you'd be all set up and ready for Monday morning. You got to sign your market data agreement so you can get real-time access to the market data for charts and scanners and the news feed. And then you'd also be able to spend some time over the weekend going through some of my onboarding classes in the Warrior Starter curriculum, which we give you a glimpse of as part of your 2-week trial. So you can make sure you're on the same page and all dialed in for Monday morning. All right. So anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and make sure if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I hope you do hit that subscribe button and check out some of these episodes on the Thinkorswim Small Account Challenge if you want to brush up a little bit more on my strategy. All right, that's it for me. I'll remind you, as always, trading is risky. My results aren't typical, so manage your risk, take it slow, and I'll see you back here on Monday morning.